Hello and welcome to another episode of India Global, your destination for all the news across the world and India's imprint on it. I am Ankit Tyagi, starting with the headlines we are tracking at this moment. Elon Musk says H-1B visa system broken after slamming MAGA supporters. Musk argues visa system needs reforms. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar embarks on three-day visit to Qatar. Jaishankar's fourth visit to Qatar will meet Qatari Prime Minister to review ties. India won't return Sheikh Hasina, claims Bangladesh interim government advisor says India won't extradite Hasina. ISRO to launch its SPADEX mission, India's final space mission for 2024. Former US President Jimmy Carter dies at the age of 100. Nobel Peace Prize recipient, no more. External Affairs Minister of India S. Jaishankar will embark on a three-day visit to Qatar starting on Monday to review overall bilateral ties, especially in trade, investment, energy and security sectors. India and Qatar share friendly relations marked by regular high-level interactions to further strengthen the partnership. This will be Foreign Minister's fourth visit to Qatar this year. During his visit, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar is expected to meet Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Qatar and discuss issues of mutual interest, including the crisis in the region. In fact, the developments in Syria and will also be part of these developments. My colleague Mohammad Ghazali has more details on this. He'll be joining us in a short while from now. But with respect to Syria, Qatar is an important player, and India, as one of the biggest regional players, would also, in fact, want to understand as if what is happening post the fall, the collapse of the Assad regime in Syria. Mohammad Ghazali is with us at this moment. Mohammad Ghazali, how important is this visit? Because, Qatar has been one of the frequent destinations as far as the high-level Indian delegations are concerned, fourth of the External Affairs Minister himself.
See, it also needs to be noted that Qatar is one of the strongest economy in the West Asia, also happens to be one of the key mediators when there is a conflict. And also when it comes to India, you remember the Prime Minister also visited Qatar earlier this year, followed by two visits by External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar. This is the fourth one this year. Why Qatar is important? Because India and Qatar are top exporters for each other when it comes to trade investment. Qatar is also one of our very, you can say, a strong ally in the West Asia. It also happens to be our strong, exporter of oil and natural gas from there, while India also kind of exports cereals, pulses, and other products. But at a time when geopolitics is heating up in the Middle East, and it is not letting down to say that the situation is not calming down in Middle East, India certainly needs a player there who can influence the views, who can influence a player who can talk in favor of India. And that is why Qatar is important. We know that those ex-8 naval officers who were arrested there on charges of this time, Qatar sort of granted them, they were pardoned off after the intervention from the Indian government. So that kind of shows the kind of relations we have with Qatar. But this visit is very important because this year only a joint trade investment committee was organized between India and Qatar, and perhaps to review all those bilateral relations between India and Qatar, the External Affairs Minister is going there. He already visited a couple of months ago when he was there at Doha Forum last month. He attended the Doha Forum. Now, in this particular trip, the External Affairs Minister is expected to announce major bilateral MOUs with Qatar when it comes to energy sector. Some other sectors where Qatar can also come in and invest in India is going to be the focus of this government. And that is why you see Prime Minister visiting Kuwait earlier, and now External Affairs Minister going to Qatar. And we already had Hardeep Puri, another cabinet minister, meeting the Qataris joint part in Delhi earlier this year.
Mohammad Ghazali, thank you so much for speaking to us on the importance of this visit of the External Affairs Minister of India to Qatar. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, the tragic death of Suchir Balaji, a former OpenAI researcher and whistleblower, has taken a new turn. In a post on X, Balaji's mother has alleged her son's death was not a suicide, as ruled by the authorities, but cold-blooded murder. Her claims have added fuel to the ongoing controversy surrounding Balaji's passing, further raising doubts about the official narrative in the United States. Now, before we dig in further into this very important story, let's understand who was Suchir Balaji. Just a primer for our viewers, those who in fact have not in any information as far as this case is concerned. Suchir Balaji was Indian origin engineer based in San Francisco. He worked at OpenAI from 2020 to 2023. Also worked on ChatGPT-4. He accused, in fact, OpenAI of violating copyright laws and considered a witness in a case against OpenAI. Now, he made several, strong revelations and allegations regarding OpenAI. These include, let's just give you a sense of what he has said versus OpenAI's clarification which had come in on this. He accused OpenAI of violating the copyright law. In fact, ChatGPT creates made-up information or hallucinations is what one of his major allegations was. These, hallucinations were damaging the internet. ChatGPT-4, Richard said, makes copies of data found online. And in fact, after these allegations were made, he was seen as a whistleblower. Now, Balaji's family, in fact, claims that he didn't commit suicide, he was killed. And meanwhile, OpenAI has also come up with their side of the story. Now, in fact, just take a look at what has happened. What is the police saying, the authorities saying on this case, and what are the claims that the parents are making at this moment? The police says, San Francisco police, that it appears to be a case of suicide, while the parents claim that it was a cold-blooded murder, that he was murdered. There have been signs of struggles as well as far as his apartment is concerned. No evidence of foul play was found. Signs of struggle and blood spots in the apartment where Suchir had died. Meanwhile, foul play is involved is the allegation of the family. The police has also claimed that cause of the death is suicide, and the parents said that the second autopsy did not confirm any cause of death, leaving a lot of questions that are still unanswered. Now, in a post, in fact, Balaji's mother has also revealed that the family had hired a private investigator and conducted a second autopsy, which contradicted the police findings. The family's demand for an FBI investigation is expected to put pressure on the authorities to re-examine what had happened as far as this case is concerned. Moving on now to neighboring Bangladesh, the Mohammad Yunus-led interim government in Bangladesh has claimed that it has heard that their request for extradition of ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina may be turned down by India. Speaking to media, the interim government's advisor, Mahfouz Alam, has said, our observation, I'm quoting him here, our observation is that they have made a political decision that they will not return her. We are hearing as such, unquote. This was said on December 23rd, sent a note, in fact, Bangladesh, in fact, had sent a note on December 23rd to New Delhi demanding the handing over of the former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina under the extradition treaty signed between both the countries in 2013, which was amended in 2016, providing legal framework for such request. After sending formal requests to India for Sheikh Hasina's extradition, Bangladesh on December 24th said Dhaka would send a reminder about the issue in writing after waiting for a certain period if there was no reply received from New Delhi. All right, let's at this moment, in fact, go across and discuss this topic further. How is it going to impact the relations between India and Bangladesh. I'm being joined at this moment by Veena Sikri, former High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh at this moment. And we are also being joined by Mohammad Kamaruzzaman, Syria journalist, TRT and analyst in Bangladesh. Thank you so much to both of you for joining us. Ms. Sikri, let me start by asking you, we had discussed this note when it was sent to India from Bangladesh to New Delhi. But the fact remains that Bangladesh is extremely keen on getting Sheikh Hasina back. India, so far, doesn't seem, in fact, giving into their request. How do you see this impacting the relationship between both the countries? Ma'am, may I request you to unmute yourself, please?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Absolutely.
Let me say very clearly that the request for extradition, this is a very formal document between India and Bangladesh, and the request for extradition is based on a legal judicial process. I think the fact that the Bangladesh government, Bangladesh interim regime has sent a note verbal, a diplomatic note verbal to the government of India and is expecting a response to a note verbal, this is just not the way in which extradition agreements are worked. There are a lot of legal judicial documents which have to come with it. The case has to be heard in Bangladesh. There has to be a judicial decision on the case. And then on the basis of that, it comes to the Indian government, and Indian government is fully within its rights to examine all this further within India, including through the law courts as well. So to think that just on the basis of a note verbal, you're going to get a response from the Indian government is completely inaccurate and is not the way in which diplomatic relations are conducted. It is very surprising. Of course, maybe the interim regime has people who are not really very well versed in the conduct of diplomatic relations and the implementation of agreements like the extradition agreement. And that is why they are conducting it through the media. They're more interested in telling the media that, oh, we have sent a note verbal, and oh, now we want to send a reminder, rather than having serious discussions on the subject. And I think the government of India has been well within its rights to just keep quiet and not say anything on a document, on a note verbal, which is absolutely not the legal status of the way in which extradition agreements are conducted or implemented.
Right. Mohammad Kamaruzzaman, so does that mean that without, in fact, filing for proper extradition, in fact, documents or a request, is the interim government only playing for domestic purposes, domestic politics and domestic audience, sir?
Thank you very much. Actually, the note verbal, this is the highest form of diplomatic request from one country to another country. Actually, fact is that, of course, this is a matter of India. Whether India will return Sheikh Hasina or not, this is India's internal affairs. But the fact is that if India does not return Hasina, it will affect on the bilateral relations between these two countries, because some issues are very clear. That is, at least during the 1 month long student movement, and Hasina ousted on August 5, 2024, that means this year. So during this month-long movement, nearly 2,000 people were brutally murdered and many visuals available. And Hasina very strongly condemned that movement and ordered the law enforcers for taking action against the protesters. So something is very clear. And there is a growing perception among the people of Bangladesh is that India's main and strongest ally is Sheikh Hasina and her political party. And India mainly owns Hasina as its ally. So this perception, of course, will grow if India takes a decision not to return Hasina. And as the crimes of against humanity and some other killings and human rights violation against Sheikh Hasina is very clear due to many reports and visuals that are also available on social media and mainstream media.
India should, let me ask you a follow-up question then.
According to the
note verbal is a request. Mr. Kamaruzzaman, let me ask you then this. The note verbal is a request from Dhaka to New Delhi. Why is the government of Bangladesh not following it up with filing proper extradition demand as far as Sheikh Hasina is concerned? as at this moment at least, we don't know whether there is any commission of inquiry or any court of law in Bangladesh which is looking into the cases specifically against Sheikh Hasina. What guarantees as far as her safety is concerned? So Bangladesh will have to follow this note verbal through proper documentation. Without that, it just seems that the interim government is actually only wanting to make this noise and propel these anti-India sentiments to grow in Bangladesh.
Actually, you know that there is an international crime tribunals here that was formed by Sheikh Hasina regime in 2010. And even that international crimes tribunal conducted the judicial process of many opposition leaders, and many even were served executive punishment. So under that tribunal, the trial of Sheikh Hasina will be conducted as per the decision of the interim government. So there is no trial process. It's not correct. Actually, trial process has already been started. And there is also some interim order of that tribunals, and even the interim government assured the international community that any country can send observer, or even Sheikh Hasina can take legal support from any senior lawyer from any country. So the judicial system has already been started now. Of course, it depends on interim government how diplomatically or through the other organs or government to government process, how Bangladesh will proceed this issue on, and of course Bangladesh may request formally to the interim government, to the Indian government to return back Sheikh Hasina.
Veena Sikri, but this is a very complicated matter. It's a catch-22 for India as well. Keep Sheikh Hasina, don't send her back. She has been one of the most trusted allies as far as India is concerned, but you are risking alienating the new government and the people of Bangladesh. If you send her back, then of course there will be a lot of people, those who will have question mark on being allies of India. How does the government of India in fact deal with this conundrum?
Please, I think long before we come to the question of India-Bangladesh relations, we have come to must look at the technical aspects under which an extradition agreement is to be implemented. Now, your guest from Bangladesh himself said that the trial will take place. It hasn't yet taken place. So there is absolutely no evidence presented in court of any kind about the allegations that he's making about events in Bangladesh, number one. Number two, when he's making allegations of a certain number of people having died and so on and so forth, even the UNHCR, which was invited to Bangladesh to make an inquiry and a report on the allegations of people having died, they have done that twice, and they have said we have not been given any evidence. So obviously this is a political gimmick by the interim regime. I think they are the ones, as you correctly mentioned, they're trying to whip up this anti-Indian hysteria, and they are of course all the time more and more wanting to go, whatever has been achieved since 1971, go back into the lap of Pakistan and do all those military cooperation that they were doing in the pre-1991 period. So I think we have to look at it from our own interest, on the interest of the bilateral agreement between India and Bangladesh, and not in terms of any political gimmickry within Bangladesh, which is intended to cast a shadow over the relationship, doing it for that purpose.
I'm completely out of time. I have to leave it there. Thank you so much to both of you for sharing your views on the broadcast at this moment. But one thing remains very, very clear. For India also, Bangladesh is an important neighbor. India has played a very important role in the freedom struggle of Bangladesh in 1971. And Bangladesh, no matter what the posturing of the new government is, cannot absolutely ignore India's interest in the region. With that, we are slipping into a short break. Jimmy Carter, the 39th President of the United States of America, passed away at the age of 100. Carter was surrounded by his family at his home in Georgia. In fact, in his final moments, the Carter Center has released a statement. In fact, US President Joe Biden remembered Carter as a dear friend, an extraordinary leader, while President-elect Donald Trump said Americans owe the former president a debt of gratitude. Watch this report to know about India and Carter ties.
On Sunday, America and the world bid farewell to a remarkable man, a man who embodied the spirit of service and diplomacy. Former US President Jimmy Carter passed away at the age of 100. Carter, the 39th President of the United States, died peacefully in his home in Plains, Georgia, surrounded by family. His passing marks the end of a century-long journey that began in a small Georgia town and carried him to the highest office in the land and beyond. After serving just one term as president, Carter's post-office life was defined by humanitarian efforts, earning him the Nobel Peace Prize in 2002. It's a legacy of tireless work for global peace, a pursuit that stretched far beyond US borders. President Joe Biden broke from his family vacation in the US Virgin Islands to remember Jimmy Carter, recalling his predecessor as a role model and friend.
This is a sad day, but it brings back an incredible amount of good memories. Today, America and the world, in my view, lost a remarkable leader. He was a statesman and humanitarian. And Jill and I lost a dear friend. I've been hanging out with Jimmy Carter for over 50 years, it dawned on me.
In New York, the Empire State Building stood as a beacon of honor in the colors of the American flag. Around the world, tributes are pouring in. From his visit to India in 1978, where a village was named Kartarpuri in his honor, to his recent efforts in promoting human rights and peace, Carter's legacy is deeply intertwined with global diplomacy and compassion. World leaders are reflecting on his profound impact. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said Carter worked tirelessly for peace, fostering ties that will last for generations. From France to Ukraine, from Israel to Japan, the tributes are universal. Jimmy Carter's life was a testament to the power of kindness, perseverance, and the belief that every action, no matter how small, can change the world. Today, his family, friends, and all those whose lives he touched mourn the passing of a man who lived not just for his country, but for humanity. As the world says goodbye to President Jimmy Carter, we are reminded that the seeds he planted in fields of peace and goodwill will continue to bloom for years to come. With Arjun Samar Mahendran, Bureau Report, NDTV.
Days after vowing to go to war to defend the H-1B visas, tech billionaire Elon Musk has said that the system which is used to bring skilled foreign workers to the United States of America is broken and needs major reform. Musk and Indian-American tech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy have recently clashed with supporters of US President-elect Donald Trump over the issue of immigration. In a response to a post on X, the social media site he owns, Mr. Musk said, and I'm quoting him here, he has been very clear, the program is broken and needs major reform. Musk and Ramaswamy, who are set to be part of the incoming Trump administration, have backed H-1B visa program. Many of Donald Trump's supporters have been increasingly pushing for scrapping the H-1B visa program amid the debate over immigration. All right, let's just discuss this further, ladies and gentlemen, and try and discuss this at this moment and the impact of what the conversations that are going on in the United States of America. I'm being joined by Sameer Kedkar, US immigration lawyer. Thank you so much, Mr. Kedkar, for joining us at this moment. Let me first start by asking you, sir, largely it is being seen, and Donald Trump also released a statement in which he has said that H-1B is good. It brings in skilled laborers back to the United States of America. somehow a lot of people are seeing Musk, and Donald Trump and Vivek Ramaswamy at this moment at loggerheads with the MAGA supporters. What's happening as far as this entire, debate is going, which is going on in the United States of America?
Sure. So yes, we've definitely seen this discussion take a turn that was a little unexpected. Trump has appointed individuals in his staff to oversee immigration who are ardently anti-immigrant. They are the ones with the power to make change and to really affect the lives of H-1B holders and other immigrants in the US. That being said, the level of exposure that Musk, Ramaswamy, and others have brought to this discussion is unprecedented and welcome by many of us who practice in the H-1B community every day and agree that major reform is needed.
So what are these reforms that, Mr. Musk is talking about? What are some issues that you see are going to be turned around, or some questions that the new regime could in fact pose as far as H-1B visa is concerned?
Well, first of all, it needs to be clear that any major reform needs to be done by Congress. It cannot be done. It can be encouraged by the president, and it certainly cannot be completed by Elon or Vivek, right? It can just be encouraged by them. But by them bringing this attention to the national spotlight, it'll spur that discussion, hopefully with change in Congress. The kind of reform that we would need, first and foremost, is an increase in H-1B numbers. Only 65,000, actually 85,000 a year are allowed to be approved, new H-1B holders. Annually, we have over 300,000 to 400,000 applicants. And so that's a huge loss of talent. Mostly Indian nationals who are attending bachelor's and advanced level degree programs in the US, who are struggling to get H-1Bs and find H-1B employment. I mean, the jobs are there for them, the H-1Bs are not. And I think that's the number one place where we can see reform.
Right, Karthik Ramakrishnan is also joining us at this moment, political scientist and immigration expert. Thank you so much for joining us here, Karthik. Karthik, let me start by asking you, because we're talking about, as Samir was saying, about the Indian immigrants in the current, and we are seeing, at least on social media, online, there is a lot of anti-India rhetoric which is going on regarding this H-1B visa at this moment. What are the worries that people have, especially the white Americans have? And, is there a middle way that can be found as far as the H-1B debate is concerned?
Thank you for having me. I think, these kinds of anxieties are not new. We've seen it over the years. What I actually find remarkable is that you have a number of Silicon Valley executives who've been quite vocal, especially on the Republican side, or at least shifting over to Trump over the last year or two, who are now vocally defending the importance of the H-1B program. That kind of advocacy was more quiet many years ago. So it's remarkable to see it as loud as it is now. So yes, we are seeing an increase in anti-Indian sentiment, anti-immigrant sentiment being expressed. Some of those are coming from, I would say, some well-placed concerns about how much investments are happening in American workers, in American students. But that said, I think the debate is more complicated now, and not the least of it because you're seeing these big divisions spill out into the open in a very public way in the Republican side.
But Karthik, let me understand this from you. A lot of criticism has come the H-1B visa system regarding, the lottery system, which is at this moment prevalent. It keeps out a lot of people who are genuinely, skilled workers, those who can, in fact, find their place in the United States of America. Even in India at this moment, a lot of companies have been pushing for their, new recruits, those who have H-1B visa, to reach before the 20th of January, because there is uncertainty what will happen post the Trump administration takes over.
Yeah, the thing I would say, though, there is a fair amount of uncertainty. Yes, Congress does make the law and any changes in the law, but we've seen a fair amount of discretion or changes in the pace of approving applications in the past, not necessarily on H-1B, but on green cards, for example. And so this is a very valid and legitimate concern. What we're also seeing, though, is that despite a lot of talk and bluster from candidate Trump, you're seeing that when businesses, and especially large, prominent businesses that contribute a lot to the US GDP, get vocal, and it's not just the tech sector, but also the agricultural sector that spoke up when it came to the nomination of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to Health and Human Services, and he wanted more influence in USDA. So, I think it will be turbulent in terms of the rhetoric, and you might even see some changes, especially with Stephen Miller playing a significant role on domestic policy. But you are seeing the business community flexing its muscles in a pretty significant way. And Donald Trump, he cares about economic performance. He cares about the stock market performance. So I think that in some ways, cooler heads will prevail on some of the more drastic changes being offered.
Sameer, let me ask you in conclusion, specifically in context to India, what kind of the worries that we are seeing at this moment, what can you say to, calm some of the nerves as far as Indians are concerned? Already H-1B is a very touchy topic as far as the Indian, especially the tech sector employees are concerned. What should they look forward to in the coming times?
Well, I think it's very promising that this level of attention from those that understand the H-1B and the green card program more than the general public is being brought on a national level. So I think that's a positive thing. Everyone has to understand that changes to affect the H-1B program do not happen right away. It takes a long time. And the Biden administration, before they're turning the reins over to the Trump administration, passed a modernization rule for the H-1B program to make it easier in many ways, more modern and more business friendly. So in many ways, it's business as usual for us in the H-1B world. I just hope to see some major changes on the green card front. That is really where the changes need to happen, especially for Indian nationals. Lifting the per country limitation on the annual employment-based green card quota is the most important thing that can happen to benefit businesses and the Indian community.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for speaking to us on this very important issue. Lakhs and lakhs of Indians, those who are hoping with their dreams as far as the United States is concerned, are keenly watching what happens post January 20th. Thank you for being with us at this moment. With that, we're slipping into a very short break. News and updates will continue here. Stay tuned. Bangladesh faced an upheaval this year with ouster of long-term Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Now, a development that also casts a shadow over its traditionally strong ties with India. The relations could be strained further. Bangladesh now, in fact, seeks her extradition from India. Take a look at how Bangladesh had a year of turmoil in 2024.
This was meant to be Dhaka's decade, when Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina would cement her legacy as the leader who propelled Bangladesh to great heights. But 2024 has brought a dramatic turn. What began with triumph swiftly descended into chaos. In January, Hasina stood victorious. She became Bangladesh's longest-serving Prime Minister after a landslide win over rival Khaleda Zia in the Battle of Begums. Hasina oversaw impressive economic growth, with GDP soaring from $100 billion in 2009 to $460 billion by 2022. But cracks began to show. In June this year, protests erupted after a Supreme Court ruling reinstated a controversial 30% quota for descendants of freedom fighters. What started as peaceful protests quickly turned violent as students demanded merit-based opportunities, clashing with Hasina's supporters. By July, the government's response grew harsher. Tear gas, curfews, and shoot-on-sight orders became routine. The nation teetered on the edge. On 5th of August, Hasina, once untouchable, fled into exile as the violence spiraled out of control. Over 1,500 people, mostly students, were killed in the unrest. What began as a political fight had evolved into a call for sweeping change. As Hasina's power crumbled, the world turned to Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, who now leads an interim government. But Yunus's rise has been controversial. In an attempt to rewrite history, the new government moved swiftly to erase Hasina's father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, from the nation's memory and its currency. Meanwhile, the international community's concerns grew. Human rights abuses, corruption, economic instability started overshadowing Bangladesh's previous success. The Asian Development Bank slashed its growth forecast, while the World Bank warned that rural households were at risk of falling back into poverty. The violence also deepened. Islamist groups like Jamaat-e-Islami, once sidelined, are now back in power. Attacks on minorities surged, and the arrest of a Hindu monk on sedition charges sent shockwaves across the region, raising alarm bells in New Delhi. In exile, Hasina accused Yunus' government of failing to protect minorities, even suggesting it was complicit in a genocide against Hindus. The most startling shift, however, is Bangladesh's new geopolitical direction. After decades of tension, Bangladesh is drawing closer to Pakistan. The two nations have resumed trade, reopened flights, and are now considering joint naval drills. The 2025 visit by Pakistan's Joint Chief of Staff to Dhaka, the first in over 50 years, has sent shockwaves across South Asia. For India, this is a major red flag. As military ties between Bangladesh and Pakistan grow, the balance of power in the region is now at risk.
As the year comes to a close, all eyes are on Muhammad Yunus. Will he indeed conduct elections and lead Bangladesh back to democracy? Will the country survive 2025, or will it be another dark chapter in the country's history? Arjun Samar Mahendran for NDTV World.
The Indian Space Research Organization ISRO will in fact bring 2024 to a close with a mission that is a critical step towards achieving several future goals, bringing back a lunar sample, setting up a space station and sending a human being to moon. On Monday, that is December 30th, in fact, ISRO will demonstrate for the first time its ability to bring together and join two satellites in space. The SPADEX, in fact, space docking experiment mission will launched at 10 p.m. at ISRO's workhorse PSLV rocket. In fact, lifts off from the first launch pad of the Sriharikota space port. In fact, the fourth stage of the launch vehicle will be used to later as a platform to carry out 24 experiments, including several by startups in the country. Let me very quickly, for more on this, go across to my colleague, senior colleague Pallav Bagla, who is joining us at this moment. Pallav, another great chapter as far as the history of ISRO is ready to be written.
Absolutely. It's a launch of the workhorse rocket polar satellite launch vehicle. The countdown continues. The liftoff is expected at 10 p.m. sharp. It's a launch with innovation written in big bold letters. From the rocket to the satellite to the experiments by startups, it's all about innovation. For the first time, India will attempt a docking experiment in space, meaning two satellites will be brought together, docked, undocked, all trying to master this very critical technology which only Russia, America and China have been able to master till date. This is required for India's Chandrayaan-4 missions and the most ambitious Bharatiya Antariksh Station, which will come up by 2035. A very critical learning step for ISRO in this SPADEX, or the space docking experiment. And the whole mission is very, very innovative, and ISRO is learning many things on this one single mission.
Thank you so much, Pallav, for joining us with those important details of this landmark mission that India is ready to embark on. Moving on now, while India entered 2024 with ties with Canada on the rocks, relation between both the nations took a sharp nosedive in the second half of the year after Ottawa linked several Indian diplomats, including High Commissioner Sanjay Verma, to the murder of Khalistani separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Now take a look at this report to understand how the relations between both countries are on a very shaky platform in 2024.
Some say don't fear the enemy that attacks you, but the fake friend that hugs you. Through a series of baseless allegations, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has turned out to be that friend for India. India-Canada relations were already in a downward spiral when the Trudeau government came out with something that shook the foundations of the bilateral relations. In October, the Trudeau government named the then Indian High Commissioner to Canada, Sanjay Kumar Verma, and several other diplomats as persons of interest in the investigation into the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
It is obvious that the government of India made a fundamental error in thinking that they could engage in supporting criminal activity against Canadians here on Canadian soil, whether it be murders or extortion or other violent acts. No country, particularly not a democracy that upholds the rule of law, can accept this fundamental violation of its sovereignty.
Rejecting the claims, India said that Trudeau's hostility to India has long been in evidence, and his government has consciously provided space to violent extremists and terrorists to harass, threaten and intimidate Indian diplomats and community leaders in Canada. Verma, now withdrawn by New Delhi, has accused Trudeau of wrecking the bilateral ties and reiterated that the Canadian government's allegations are politically motivated. The controversy first erupted in September 2023 when Trudeau linked the Indian government to the killing of Nijjar. New Delhi had termed the allegations absurd and politically motivated. A month later, Canada pulled out 41 diplomats from India and also halted its visa and consular services. Cut to April, slogans of Khalistan Zindabad were raised in the presence of Trudeau at a Khalsa Day event. In July, a temple in Canada's Edmonton was allegedly vandalized by pro-Khalistan activists.
India has repeatedly said that Canada has not been able to present any evidence to back its claims over Nijjar's killing. In fact, Trudeau himself contradicted his strong claims by saying this.
Their asks of us was, well, how much do you know? Give us the evidence you have on this. And our response was, well, it's within your security agencies. You should be looking into how much they know. You should be engaging. It's, oh, no, tell us what you know. Show us the evidence. And at that point, it was primarily intelligence, not hard evidentiary proof.
The hullabaloo around the whole controversy has deeply affected Trudeau's popularity. Consider this. According to a survey, nearly 40% of Canadians feel that the Trudeau government hasn't properly handled the bilateral relationship with India. To add salt to the wound, the poll also found out that 39% of Canadians believed that ties wouldn't improve till Trudeau was the Prime Minister. International diplomacy is not the only frontier where Trudeau seems to be struggling, as he's faltering inside his own territory as well. His Liberal Party looks set to lose power early next year after more than 9 years in office. The Prime Minister is under increasing pressure from dozens of his own legislators to step down and let someone else take over. Voter fatigue as well as anger over high prices and a housing crisis seem to be driving the discontent towards the embattled leader. Trouble from within the party came to the fore when his deputy and the then finance minister resigned this month, citing differences in opinion over fiscal policies. That's not all. There's also a Donald Trump factor in the mix, as the incoming US president has threatened to slap 25% tariffs on all goods imported from Canada unless the country stops illegal immigration into the country. This friction against Trudeau seems to have benefited one person in particular, Pierre Poilievre. Polls suggest that the opposition leader is a preferred choice for Prime Minister, with many Canadians believing Trudeau should resign.
The Canadian Prime Minister seems to be on borrowed time. The clock is ticking away faster each day. The question that remains is how long he can delay the inevitable of vacating his chair. A chair that seems to be riddled with thorns. This is Vishal Vivek for NDTV World.